So this is the time of the year where there's overreaction at all. It doesn't matter what the reaction is, it's always overreaction. I wanted to pull people back from the brink here a little bit. I am more optimistic about Georgia's 2025 season than I think a lot of Georgia fans are. And there's a lot of reasons why. But mainly I think folks are overreacting to Georgia not winning in the Sugar Bowl. And it's a long slog of this past season. And, now that we know Etienne is not coming back, and now that we know some of the guys that are coming in for Georgia, I just wanted to talk about this for a little bit because I think it's been something that's just like, I really think that we overdo this in general. The social media world that we live in, the message boards, they can really be a vacuum unto themselves, and they can be an echo chamber. What I've discovered listening to media here lately, particularly on social media, from a lot of people that just don't cover the sport or they kind of in an ancillary way, is that the Big Ten, the SEC is dead, which is preposterous and ridiculous, but whatever. For Georgia, there's a lot of positivity going into this season. Whether people want to say that or not, I'm not sure. They're the number 2 favorite to win the national championship in 2025. The number 1 is Ohio State. That's not an abnormal thing for a national champion that's returning, playing the next season. It's not abnormal at all for the team that wins it, or I'm assuming Ohio State wins it, to be favored to win it the next year. It almost never happens. Welcome to all the years lately that are not 2022 and 2012. So that's a lot of what's going on. I think a lot of the negativity obviously surrounds the lack of production on the offensive side of the ball with Mike Bobo as the offensive coordinator. He is everybody's boogeyman, whether it's legitimate criticism or not. But Georgia's offensive line has been the real challenge. Was the real challenge in 2024. But let me get to the optimistic part. I think for me, adding the playmakers that they have on the outside, that's number 1. You're talking about a program that, for the most part, kept everybody at Georgia in this first transfer window and added some really good players. No offense, no one cares that Jake Pope left Georgia. He never made a significant play that I can remember. So, you got guys that are moving on, that need to move on. The Carson Beck stuff about him going to Miami. I did not anticipate Carson coming back to Georgia, mainly because I did not anticipate Carson coming back to college football. But some things changed, and I think Carson made the right move for him. As far as Etienne is concerned, I think he made the right move for him. I don't think him coming back changed a lot for Georgia. Changed a lot for him. It would have helped Georgia a lot. But on the flip side of that, Etienne didn't play a lot of games at Georgia. That was the bad part. He didn't play against Clemson. He did not play in November. Really from the week off until the SEC championship game, he didn't play in any of those games. So I think the way that now you've gotten a lot of experience for Gunnar Stockton. He's played in 1.5 games that were championship level games. And then, if you look at the landscape of college football, just to be frank, I don't know what's going to happen at Texas with Steve Sarkisian. I don't think he's going to be the next head coach at the Dallas Cowboys, but he could be. I kind of doubt that, to be honest with you. But Ohio State is going to take a step back the way that Georgia did from 22 to 23. Ohio State's going to take a step back. You look at Michigan, they're going to rely on a young playmaker. Alabama, they got a lot of turnover, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. Their backfield is going to be completely different. Mississippi, they got a lot of change there too. In the SEC, it may be Georgia and Tennessee and Texas. That may be who it is. And, Georgia's found a way to beat Tennessee recently. I don't think that that's going to stop. I think if you're talking about who's going to win the SEC, the vast majority of people are going to pick between Texas and Georgia. I would say Tennessee and Alabama, perhaps. I don't know what's going on in Alabama. So that could be, problematic and so forth. But there's just not a lot of teams that have the talent that Georgia has. And so that's why I think, for me, moving forward, all those road games, they're home games now. You're not going to Georgia Tech. You're playing them at the Dome. You're not playing at Bryant-Denny. They got to come to Athens. The two most difficult, there will be 3 pretty difficult games for Georgia in 2025. They will be Alabama at home, Tennessee on the road, and Texas at home. And honestly, they should probably win at least 2 of 3, maybe all 3. I don't think Georgia's going undefeated in 25, but I don't think that's out of the question like I did in 24. I thought in 24 it was just going to be too much. But I don't know, man. I mean, they're not playing Clemson to open the season. They're not going on the road to Georgia Tech, which they would have been, of course. So there's a lot of stuff that, hey, this doesn't seem like it used to. No, because it's not. The team that Georgia had in 21 and then particularly in 22, those were generational teams. We're seeing a team that did not win its conference is going to win the national championship. So conference championships don't mean what they used to, that's for sure. All of the conference champions, they lost their first game in the playoff. Will that happen next year? I mean, I don't know. I heard it was Mike Griffin talking about how the SEC's got to adjusted. No, they don't. Just go win the games you're supposed to win. I mean, the SEC is the most difficult conference. It just is. Just go win the games you're supposed to win. Talk about how you're going to get beat up. That's a playbook from the Big Ten back in the day when they used to, fall on their face all the time. The SEC just didn't win the games they needed to win, period. That's what happened. They were not as good as they've been in the past. I don't know why we can't say that out loud, but the notion of you got to make the schedule easier, it's too hard to make the schedule easier. That's never going to happen now. I mean, Georgia didn't play South Carolina this season. They didn't play, just pick a team. They didn't play them. They didn't play Texas A&M. They didn't play South Carolina. They didn't play Oklahoma. I mean, the league has gotten to the point where it's too hard to expect the easy schedule or whatever notion that there is. It's not going to be like Indiana where you escape basically the entire season until November. All of a sudden you're ranked. Had Indiana taken a loss at the beginning of the season, would they have gotten into the playoff? I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to get sidetracked on Indiana. The point is, Georgia's schedule this season is exactly the same as last, with the exception of not playing Clemson, okay? And I think it's all right there for them. Now, the pitfalls are, the offensive line has got to get better. The good news on that front is they have recruited significantly well on the offensive line. They returned some starters. They've returned guys who have started, and they've returned starters. I mean, obviously, Monroe Freeling is a starter, or I would say Ernest Green is a starter, but they didn't start at the end of the season. Drew Bobo has started. So they're returning 3 people who have started. So that's not exactly, we're starting over here. And then you've got some younger guys that it's go time for them. If you're a rising sophomore or a rising junior, it's go time. And Georgia's always had good. This is probably the worst offensive line that Georgia's had. And how much of that was due to the way in which Georgia was just rotating so much in the middle of the season, which is when they weren't playing well on the offensive line. So injury is another thing that you'll have to get. There's no such thing as luck, okay? That doesn't exist. It's a matter of, are you preparing for the moment or not? There's no such thing as luck, okay? I'm sorry to disappoint you. It's not out there. So if guys get hurt, can you plug someone in for them to play well? Drew Bobo did a pretty good job when Wilson was out at center. Now, will Drew Bobo be the center, or will he slide over to guard? I mean, what's going on with all those things? So, and I'll just say this too about the offensive linemen that were leaving. I mean, we knew Tate Ratliff was going to leave, but Georgia desperately wanted them back. They would have made it to where those guys were coming back. I mean, that's my take on it. So, I don't know, but Andrew Thomas, Isaiah Wilson, I mean, they don't have guys like that, but they have some really good younger players on the offense. I'm very curious to see Calhoun at guard or wherever they put these guys. I mean, you never really know, but they're going to have to find. Ernest Green's going to have to be their left tackle. It seems like, or they're going to have a left tackle. You get that settled in, which they really didn't this season. You get that settled in, which probably means Ernest gets healthy. You kick Freeling over either to, he can play left guard, he could play right tackle. I mean, I would imagine Freeling can play a lot of places. If you're playing left tackle, you can play almost anywhere. But that's probably not the ideal situation all the time. But the thing about it is Georgia got options. I mean, you look at South Carolina, no. I mean, no. You look at, Florida is going to improve. That will probably Georgia's fourth most difficult game, and it could be that Florida's really good by the time they get down there. But I'm more optimistic than most people are about this season right now, because everybody that is a fan of Georgia or covers Georgia, they know where the bodies are buried, but they forget about the bodies that aren't buried. I mean, everybody was ready to anoint Gunnar Stockton the next Stetson Bennett, and then, I guess reality hit, and he couldn't just walk on water. I also think, frankly, and I talked about this before Georgia lost to Notre Dame, Gunnar needs to be able to have time to develop into Stetson Bennett, or to Carson Beck. I mean, it took Carson, it felt like it took Carson about half a season to get rolling. And it was when they came back from Auburn, that the fifth game, which was the Kentucky game, not half the season, but the halfway point of the regular season, basically. It took him about that long to really kind of sink his teeth into it. The learning curve may be quicker for Gunnar. I mean, he's already played in 2 huge games, one as a starter. Carson never got that. I mean, Carson was never thrown into that situation. So that could be the case for Gunnar. And that's why I think people right now are a little bit too close to the edge for me. I'm not saying they're going to go undefeated. I'm not. I'm also not saying that's out of the question. A year ago, I did say that was out of the question, okay? And then, you look at what they've got on the outside. They got many more explosive players than they did a season ago on the outside, okay? I thought this past season would be a lot of this quick game, on offense. It wasn't. There was a lot of that, They were far more comfortable. My words, not Kirby's. They were far more comfortable throwing it than they were running it. And they were better maybe at pass protection. It may be that they come in with this next group of offensive linemen and they feel more comfortable road grading. But the fact is, you got to do both. You got to be able to do both. And we're going to see if these guys can over time. But my view on this 25 season is that, when you look at the betting odds already from MGM and wherever, Ohio State is going to be the favorite coming in, but they're not a favorite by a lot. You look at the turnover at Oregon. I mean, a lot of people got turnover at quarterback, okay, very specifically. That's going to be the case unless some things change. All the teams that played in the semifinals are going to have turnover. Not Penn State. All the teams, but my quandary with Penn State is, so long as James Franklin's their coach, are they going to really be able? This was their season to do it, and this is Notre Dame's season to do it. Because I don't think there's not going to be a lot of this. The SEC is dead. This same talk about New York City when COVID was New York City's dead, bro. Y'all just don't understand. Y'all are way off. So the same thing with the SEC is that if you think that the place where it matters more than anything, any other sport, anywhere, people in Wisconsin, they're more likely to be Packer fans than Wisconsin fans. People in Michigan, they're going crazy over the Lions. Nobody gives a shit about the Falcons. They never have. Place is half empty all the time. You show me a time when Georgia hasn't sold out Sanford Stadium. It's going to be 15 years ago for the Coastal Carolina game, okay? And the 10 years before that, it was sold out. People care down here. They're freaking out at Alabama. They care. And that's why the SEC ain't so dead. Talking about now everybody can play players. Yeah, like there wasn't cheating going on at Ohio State. Come on now. Like, we know there was, period. So let's not get into all that. Otherwise, Jim Tressel would still be the head coach there. So let's not. I mean, Urban Meyer was the head coach at Ohio State. We're taking lectures down here about cheating and who's cheating and who isn't. Come on. So it's extremely important down here. I think the difference in the near future is you're not going to see 4 years in a row of absolutely dominant elite teams like 19 LSU, 20 Alabama, and Georgia, and 21 and 22. That part I'm not sure is coming back. Now, that doesn't mean you're dead. It just means that it's, things could change. But let's not forget who won this league this year. It actually was Georgia. They've won the league 2 of the last 3 years, if my math is correct, and they lost it by 3 points the other time. So Georgia's still got a lot of firepower. I think they increased their firepower offensively in the passing game, even switching out for a quarterback that's not known more for his arm than the guy that left. So we'll see. The receivers are definitely going to be better. Running back, though, is a concern now. I mean, you don't have ETN, and you've got to replace the offensive line. That's not, it's a tricky situation for Georgia on that front. But I'm not as close to the ledge as everybody else is at all. And we're just going to see, you'd have thought maybe defensively. I've talked about the offense the whole time. Georgia's defense, Jalen Walker leaving is going to hurt the most. And maybe Dan Jackson, maybe those two specifically the most. But you're also losing Malachi Starks, you're losing Mikael Williams. You lost Smile Munden. You lost some really, really good players, okay? But on the defensive side of the ball, Georgia's lost really good players a long time. And it's not new, and, they're going to be okay on that front, it seems like. But my suspicion is they probably eat a loss, maybe 2 in 25. I don't know if it's going to be 2, but the schedule is difficult. It is, but that's just something people are going to have to get used to. That's what this is. This is a television show that's masquerading as a football season, and it's just what it is. And the sport is better. More people are watching it. You can just see it. It's captivating. Probably. Well, I'm very curious to see how many people watch this national championship game, because all of the South will watch it because they'll hate watch it. But then, you probably lose the West Coast a little bit. But I'll be very curious to see how many people watch that game, because, Notre Dame is allegedly a national brand. Ohio State definitely is. And I will be curious to see. But as soon as that game, the confetti falls and you start cleaning that up, 25 starts. 25's already started, to be honest with you. Today is the last day, the 15th, to declare, if I'm not mistaken, for everybody. And with ETN leaving, it's not like you're without a running back. You've got Nate Frazier. You just have a different type of running back. But I'm going to go eat lunch now. Not going to make any more mistakes. Thanks for watching. We'll see you somewhere different than the ledge. Put it to you that way.